Hello, today's live video lesson is for my student Roberto, and we're going to talk about something that I sometimes call the seed of all blues licks. That's a little bit of hyperbole. It's not all blues licks, but it's a seed of a lot of blues licks. When you're doing this kind of stuff that I was just playing, so this thing I'm going to show you, this little 5-note sequence, probably appeared maybe a dozen times in what I just played. Little snippets of it. Sometimes it loops around itself a couple times. So let me show you the 5 notes, and I'm just going to do all my examples in the key of C. So this is pentatonic scale at the 8th fret. That's the kind of landscape we're in. And when we're here, our bendable notes would be 10th fret G string, 11th fret B string, and then 11th fret high E string. But we're not going to touch that one really. We're doing just one bend primarily. It's this one on the G string, 10th fret right there. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be playing. And the 5 notes that loop around are this bend on the G string, 10th fret, 8th fret on the B string, 8th fret on the high E, then 11th fret on the B string, and 8th fret on the B string. Those are your 5 notes. It's the bend, 8th fret, 8th fret, 11th fret, 8th fret, like that. So the first thing you want to do is get those 5 notes going around and around, just so you have them memorized, and it feels like you can go from any point in that sequence around that circle of notes. We're not really putting it in time yet. We're just putting them nice and even. So I'm going to do that for a little bit and see if you can play along like this. Now these 2 notes on the 8th fret, you could bar with your first finger on those 2 notes and get them both to ring out together like that, or you can separate them by just rolling your finger from one to the next. But you don't want to hop your finger from fingertip to fingertip because that's too slow. You won't be able to do it at that kind of speed. So the picking on this, in order to play it fast, there are probably a lot of different ways to pick it that would be efficient at a fast speed, but I'm going to show you the way that I recommend, that I use, that I'm pretty sure Stevie Ray Vaughan used. He's the only one that I've looked at to see how exactly he picks this, because he does it so fast and so clearly. The picking is down on the bend, then down up on those 2 8th fret notes, and then on the B string, down on the 11th fret, up on the 8th fret. So going through that again, it's down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. And those first 2 downs, you can make that, as the speed increases, you make that feel like one long downstroke that just goes through 2 strings. Like that. So your pick, it's kind of like doing a slow strum. It just goes through those 2 strings, and at slower speeds you're trying to work on synchronizing your hands so it feels like you're doing that slow strum in extra slow motion. You're not doing a downstroke and then a separate downstroke. It's one long downstroke that goes through 2 strings. That's what you want it to feel like. Down, down, up, down, up. Or if we think of those 2 downs as like one long downstroke, you can think of it as down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And that describes more the path of your hand. It's doing that one long downstroke as one continuous motion, even though we're in very slow motion right now. So the next step will be start putting this in time. And since it's 5 notes in a row, it doesn't lend itself to playing to like a repeated lick like that kind of thing would. That's, you can play 16th notes like that, and it repeats on the same note every time in a row. So since we have 5 notes, it doesn't lend itself to repeating in groups of 4 or in groups of 3, which are both really common. So groups of 4 would be 16th notes. Groups of 3 would be like a triplet feel if you're doing like 2, 3, 4. Those would be like that's your triplet feel, and then the 16th note feel would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So neither of those work very well with repeating this little blues cell, this little cliche seed. So what we have to do is find ways to start from any point in those 5 notes and loop all the way through a 4-note phrase. So that would be, we could start at the beginning and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then we land on the next downbeat of the next one. So we're thinking the rhythm that we're doing is like da 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 da, like that. So that's the first thing you can practice with this. Once you just get those 5 notes going around and around, start putting it in time, do it like this, where you go, you'd count it 1 E and 2, like that, where you're feeling the beat on the first note and the last note. So it's a group of 4 notes that's inside the beat. Then do that 4 more times, but starting on the other 4 notes. So you can start on the 2nd note and work out the picking that you need to do to make that work. Still stick with the recommended picking, at least as a starting point, and then you can change it to fit the way that you pick if you want to later. So if you start on the 2nd note, it's going to go down, up, starting on the B string 8th fret. You're going down, up, down, and you end on the bend now. So we still hit all 5 notes any way we do this, but we're starting on a certain one and then ending on a certain one. So we get this down, up, down. If I speed that up just gradually, down, up, down, up, down. 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 And so each one of these little phrases, you want to just get it to flow at a slow speed, feeling the beat on the first note and the last note, and then gradually increase the tempo until it feels like you can just go da-da-da-da, and you get those 5 notes to come out like a little machine gun, just like as a miniature lick. Even though it doesn't really sound like the kind of thing you could throw into the middle of a solo, it will work in the middle of a bunch of other notes around it. So you might be playing a longer lick, and then this comes in as a phrase in the middle of it all, and it works really well like that. So going to the next note, we'd start here on the high E string on the 8th fret, and that's an upstroke. We get up, down on the bend, and then sweep down into the B string. So that's up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Sorry, down. Up, down, up, down, down. Up, down, up, down, down. Next, we'd start on the B string 11th fret. We go down, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up. Next, we start on the B string, 8th fret, with the upstroke going to the bend, down, up, down. So we get this, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down. And that's all of them. Those are the 5 different starting points you can use this on. And from there, if you can start to chain them together into longer cycles around, because each time you start on one of them and you go 4 notes through it and you end on a different one, that would be the start of the next 4 notes. So you could get something like this. If I went through 2 beats of 4 notes in each beat, I would go starting from the bend again. And then it doesn't feel like that lick is repeating. Even though you're playing it in a cycle, it is repeating, but musically it doesn't really feel like it because we're hearing it in groups of 4, and the second group of 4 is different from the first group of 4, which makes this a really cool thing to use. You can throw it into a solo and repeat it a couple times, and it doesn't feel like there's a repeating lick going on. Like that. Start on the second one. Oops. Like that. And then like that. Once you can chain them together like that, then you can use this as an exercise and just do it indefinitely, where you get the metronome going, or I'm tapping my foot down here for tapping the beat, or do it to a backing track. So that little exercise is kind of cool. I think it is more valuable to do shorter little bits of it in bursts. So you're trying to do like that and just 5 notes, and just trying to get those 5 notes to come out as quickly as possible. And then you do that from all the different starting points. It's like doing these little sprints. It's easier to get faster that way than it is for doing like an endless stream of notes that are repeating over and over. The other way you can do it, I'm not going to walk you through every piece of it now. I'd recommend just start with those that I just gave you. But once you've got those down, the other way you can do it is in triplet feel. So you could be doing like, so you'd be going da 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 like that. And again, you can start from any one of those 5 notes, and you can do a little burst. Like maybe you could do da 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 da, just a burst of 4 notes, like that. And just try to work on little sprints like that, and do that from all the different starting points. So then you'd go, that would be your next 4-note burst. And you try to keep the picking intact as you do all of these, the picking from the recommended way that I gave you. And then you can move those into longer bursts where you do da 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 da, like that. So you can come up with all sorts of creative ways of making these little bursts happen from different starting points. And then you try throwing them into your solos, and especially as you're learning blues solos, you try make sure you're identifying this when it happens. Let me throw you one example at you as the lick in one of the solos in All Along the Watchtower from Jimi Hendrix's recorded version. That lick, I think it's in the key of C too, is that throws in that little bend right there as a break in it, but it starts out with the first 3 notes of this cliche. Throw in that bend to interrupt it, and then we come back to this note and we go. So we go 1.5 times through that cycle before it changes into something else. I think. So it's in there. It's in Voodoo Child several times. and it's all over. Like Slash is playing, Angus Young's playing, and anyone who plays in this blues style and does these kind of bendy things has this little phrase is just embedded all over the place. It's everywhere. So especially in whatever you're playing, just try to recognize it when it's there, when you hear it, or when you're learning something like, oh, it's that same thing again. And especially if you work on this thing in isolation and you get it up to fast speeds with these little bursts, then whenever it shows up in the other solos that you're playing or in your own improvising, then that moment of music is going to be pretty easy for you. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching. See ya.